with his booming voice and groans of pleasure as he slowly scoops a spoonful of dessert into his mouth on MasterChef. Gregg Wallace's larger-than-life TV persona has won him millions of fans. But behind his extrovert, ebullient and exuberant TV appearances, he carries the same insecurities, anxieties and self-doubt as the rest of us. Which is why the former Peckham greengrocer agreed to speak to the Mirror's Men in Mind podcast, to show men they're not alone if they're struggling with their mental health. Gregg, 58, says, "We've gone well past the stage where there's any stigma about talking about these things. If you are suffering at all, go and get help." The premise of the podcast, in association with Mind, is simple: to encourage men to open up. Mind's research shows 1 in 5 people have spoken to a loved one about their own mental health as a result of hearing a celebrity speak out about theirs. And during our hour-long chat, Gregg was true to his word, showing admirable honesty as he opened up about subjects deeply personal to him. The first is how anxiety had been a constant in his life for years, but something he now manages through therapy and self-care, including exercise, eating well and cutting down booze. However, 9 years ago, it wasn't always such smooth sailing. An appearance on Strictly Come Dancing with partner Aliona Villani led to his anxiety levels soaring. Gregg adds, "I was having a really tough time. I was really stressed. So badly that the side of my face broke out into a rash, like cold sores. It got to the point where he couldn't take to the stage. And Strictly bosses were so worried about him they recommended he speak to a therapist." Gregg says, "I was due to do the dance that night and I called her up and said, 'Are you free? Can you come and help me?' She jumped in the car, came into my dressing room and had me in floods of tears. But I went out and danced." He maintained that relationship with the same therapist, and credits her for helping to unpick what he calls his low self-esteem and self-doubt issues. Gregg thinks a lot of this stems from growing up with no money on a council terrace, leaving home with no qualifications and barely struggling to get by as he worked day and night. Washing machine repairs, cleaning, factory work, he tried his hand at everything, but money was little to non-existent. Even as his career took off after landing a greengrocer job in the Covent Garden market, he was petrified it would all come crashing down. Gregg says, "I felt keenly that I had no money when I was a young person, and that really scares me. And even when I was doing really well, I wasn't getting less scared. In fact, I was getting more scared." The bigger he got, particularly after landing MasterChef in 2005 with John Turode, so too did his anxiety levels. Not surprisingly, it also affected family life. Gregg adds, "I used to not be able to go on holiday without getting anxiety attacks. I had to go to my hotel room and not come out and try to plan things. What my life was going to be like and how I was going." Now and again, his wife of 10 years, Anna has gently suggested whether he would consider walking away from it all. He adds, she says, "Is this worth it? You're wonderful and you provide for your family really well, but I'm not convinced you're doing it for us. I think you are doing it for you. And that has always been the crux of the matter." Because no matter how periodically stressful Gregg has found life, his ambition still burns bright. He says, "Anna says I'll reach the point I am going to calm down and then that'll just be a springboard to the next thing." It's fair to say his fourth wife, or Guru Anna as he lovingly calls her, knows him inside out. They met on Twitter in 2013 after she sent him a message asking whether it was okay to cook duck and rhubarb together. They married 3 years later at Hever Castle in Kent. His face lights up talking about her. As if on cue, she texts us just to say how much she loves him. Gregg adds, "I feel like I've got the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka golden ticket." As well as therapy, Gregg credits Anna for helping to overhaul his life, mentally, as well as physically with his 5-stone weight loss. She is an integral part of his healthy lifestyle company, Gregg Wallace Health, which features 500 of her filmed recipes. Gregg says with a chuckle, "What we need to do now is make her a judge on MasterChef." He has helped thousands of people lose weight and adds, hopefully they're happier, too, as they're not worrying about their health. Anna also encouraged him to cut back on booze. He says, "I love a drink, especially at the rugby, but the difference is I'm probably now drinking 15% of what I used to." They make quite the team, and they have to, as parents to Sid, 4, who is non-verbal autistic. Gregg says, "I love him dearly, he's a happy, cuddly, bouncy little boy. But it's challenging, and he worries about the future, another reason why he embraced a healthy lifestyle." He adds, "The only fear for me is that I'm so much older. And when I'm not there, I hate the thought of Anna struggling with an autistic son and not being able to cope." That concern aside, Gregg's happiness is plain to see. But with 3 failed marriages behind him, it's been a long road to get here, and his last marriage to Heidi Brown in 2010 lasted only 15 months. He hated the loneliness of single life, as bad habits invariably crept in. Gregg says, "I really started drinking. That's when the weight started piling on. That's when I got really, really unhappy. Some of the loneliest times, however, were spent as an only child growing up in South London," he says. It was a childhood blighted by the shadow of abuse. At 8 he was sexually assaulted by their babysitter's husband. Gregg says, "I didn't tell anybody at the time, but I did tell my mom when I was older, but she didn't really seem to want to know." He still vividly remembers the abuse all these years later. Gregg adds, "I can see me as a young boy and I can see him and I can smell him. It wasn't nice. I don't know how that affected me. I've never brought that up in therapy, so I've got no idea. But he would touch me and get me to touch him and kiss me as well. It was quite a horrendous situation for a young boy." And as our time draws to a close, you can't help but be moved by Gregg's candor, and his refusal to ever duck a question, however difficult. And rather like the reason for opening up about his mental health for the podcast, he sees speaking about his experience all those years ago as an opportunity to help others. Gregg says, "If by chance a young person is listening to this, it's not your fault. Please, just get out there and tell somebody. For support go to mind.org.uk. Follow Mirror Celebs on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Threads.